Hello, welcome into First Alert Weather Plus. We got clouds moving into the area on this Tuesday, February 17th. And for the most part, it's dry today, but it's pretty mild. Temperatures into the upper 60s. We're going to make a run near the 70s for a few days this week. It's going to be really nice and spring-like. But thanks for tuning in to today's edition of First Alert Weather Plus. I am First Alert meteorologist Darius Mack here, and it is a good day. All right, so we're going to be talking about some interesting things today. Of course, it's severe weather awareness. We're talking about safety, and more importantly, going to be talking about lightning safety. That's going to be kind of our topic of discussion today, and so we're going to be walking you through that. So here's a look at some of the headlines for today's topics of discussion. So again, we're talking about lightning safety, and then also what causes lightning. So we're going to look at the science, just breaking down what exactly causes lightning to strike, and then also it is severe weather awareness. So talking about those things, and then again some cool science to break down with you, just explaining what happens when lightning strikes. All right, so severe weather awareness in Middle Tennessee, really important because we're getting around that time of year, especially the springtime, is where you'll find at least our greatest chance of seeing severe weather. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're expecting frequent severe weather, but it's just right around that time of year you transition from winter to spring, and you get that warm, moist air, kind of really makes the air unstable and gives us those chances for severe weather. So the peak season, March, April, and May. So that's typically right around that time of year, and roughly easy to say meteorological spring right around that time window. And so right now is the time to just be informed and prepare for whenever severe weather strikes in the area. So let's talk about that setup. So this is a springtime setup, and this is a what I would call a textbook setup for a springtime severe weather event, is when you got the key ingredients: moisture and stability and shear. All of these three are the key ingredients needed for severe weather to develop. And so this would just be a typical setup. You got a cold front, a warm front lifting into the area, and then that warm, moist air lifted in from the Gulf. And so that's what fuels the storms and makes the air pretty unstable. Not to mention wind shear. You got winds going from one direction and then winds going from another direction. That's typically indicative of wind shear. So all of those ingredients plus the moisture combined can be the recipe for a springtime severe weather event. So something to keep in mind of. That's just, again, a typical setup of what we would be talking about. All right, so lightning safety, very important to know about this. So when thunder roars, go indoors. That's pretty much kind of a general universal saying. On average, lightning strikes the United States about 25 million times a year. So really important, as lightning can be a major cause of storm-related deaths here in the U.S. So again, if you see lightning, if you even hear thunder, you're in an area where lightning can strike. And lightning can strike within 10 miles or more from an actual thunderstorm. So something to keep in mind with that. Another thing is no place outside is safe during a storm. If you happen to be outside, if you can't find shelter elsewhere, avoid elevated areas like hills or peaks, as well as bodies of water. Really important, especially during the summertime with thunderstorms. Pools, ponds, lakes, those are areas to really avoid, as the current there, they act as conductors of electricity, and so lightning can actually strike bodies of water when you factor that in. So really important there. Another thing, kind of just a rule of thumb, is that the sound of thunder, that travels a mile every 5 seconds. So whenever there's thunder, there's lightning, right? So a kind of a rule of thumb is you count between the time that you hear that rumble of thunder and the time you see that flash of lightning, and then you divide that by 5 seconds, and that'll tell you just how far lightning is from you. So, for instance, if you count 5 seconds, then that means lightning could have struck maybe roughly a mile from where you are. If you count 10 seconds, that means lightning could have struck roughly 2 miles from where you are. So, just kind of a rule of thumb there when it also comes to being outside and hearing thunder and seeing lightning. All right, so we talked a little bit about lightning safety. Let's break down the science of lightning. And so kind of a cool thing here of what happens in our atmosphere. So our atmosphere becomes electrically charged. So you got a thunderstorm cloud that develops and develops, and mostly what that thunderstorm cloud is really tiny ice crystals. Now, what happens is whenever you get this warm rain to kind of interact with those tiny ice crystals, and then also the hail that's embedded with these thunderstorm clouds, it creates a lot of these collisions suspended up thousands of feet above our heads. It creates a lot of these collisions in that storm cloud. And what happens is those particles, based off of those collisions between, again, the warm rain mixing in with the hail and those tiny ice crystals in the cloud, creates electrically charged particles. And you'll see a lot of that develop at the base of the cloud. And so what happens is whenever you get a lot of that, say, at the base of the cloud, and then also the ground, which is positively charged. For this instance, we're looking at a tree, positively charged particles. So we know that if you go back to electrons and protons, they attract. And so what happens, you get the positively charged particles attracting, so they're going to actually go up towards the base of the cloud, and then this is what you get with at least that initial start of that lightning strike. And in other words, kind of a stepped leader, if you will, is what you start to see that develop as it's developing from the base of the cloud. That's literally our atmosphere interacting with the ground at that point, the positively charged ground. So you see that. It goes through all of this, and then all of this, by the way, happens within less than a second, by the way. So this whole process is really fascinating. But you look at the time that the lightning strikes. I mean, lightning, you can get up to 100 flashes within a second whenever lightning strikes. So again, less than a second is when this all happens. But this process is repeated, where you get a lot of the positively charged particles interacting with the negatively charged particles. And whenever you get a kind of off balance of that, if there's more, let's say if you have more positively charged or more negatively charged particles than the positive ones, then that's what kind of creates that lightning. So that quick flash of light is what we see as a result of that with the lightning strike. So really cool stuff to know there. But you get different types of lightning. You get cloud to ground. That's pretty common. From ground to cloud is very rare, but that can happen. And then also cloud to sky, intracloud. So intracloud is just basically within the cloud, from cloud to cloud at that point. So you're looking at just those different types of lightning strikes that we get. But again, the common one is going to be the cloud to ground, and that is the one that you really want to pay attention to, as that is what leads to a lot of the fatalities, lightning fatalities. So let's talk about this. Activities with most deaths. So this was a breakdown from the National Weather Service between about 2006 and 2018. They looked at the number of deaths. Now, on average here in the United States, it has lowered with the average number of deaths per year within the last few decades, but it is still roughly about 20 deaths per year in the U.S. as a result of being struck by lightning. So some of the activities that you see listed here, and I just want to point out, a lot of these activities, so fishing seems to be one of the top here. So it's either a leisure or outdoor recreational activity. And then a lot of this is for, so you go fishing, beach, that's near water. Okay, so that's just something to point out here. The first two are areas near water, and then also looking at boating. So these are just a list of activities that have the most lightning fatalities with them associated. So you find a lot of that really from leisure and recreational activities. And then some of these can be work-related, yard work, 12, roofing, 11, golf, 10. But notice the highest is fishing that has the highest number of fatalities there. And so that's just to show you, again, it's going to be the leisure and recreational activities that you really want to be mindful of whenever there's storms, which is why, of course, you get, say you're out at a ball game, you see lightning. Well, there's going to be a timeout or a delay because of lightning and just how dangerous it can be. But check this out. Lightning fatalities by state. So we look at Tennessee, and based off of this graphic, it has us between 6 to 15 here, between about 2006, 2025, into 2025. So over the last couple of decades, about 6 to 15 deaths total in Tennessee from the result of being struck by lightning. Now, the highest here is Florida. Okay, the Florida Peninsula there, that is the highest, more than 30 there with lightning fatalities. And when you look by state. All right, so let's talk about our chances for rain coming up later this week. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the risk for severe weather as well. So that's what we're going to be tracking later into the week. And then also kind of breaking down what to really look for with that risk for severe weather that we do have coming up. So let's break this down. We're looking at, our chances for rain. For today, I think there could be a stray sprinkle here or there, but as we go later throughout the week, so here's about Thursday into Friday, we're looking at about a 30 to 40% chance for rain coming up. And not to mention, there is also a risk for severe weather. So here's the breakdown with that. This is the severe weather risk outlined from the Storm Prediction Center. So the Storm Prediction Center, they're kind of like the National Weather, or they are the National Weather Service, and they have an office that is out in Norman, Oklahoma. And what they do is they actually issue out these outlooks for severe weather. And so this is what their general thinking is by Friday, as we're looking at a level 1 risk here locally in Tennessee, but the greatest risk is what you'll find towards the Ohio River Valley for the chance for severe weather. And that's going to be on Friday. At least that's what this is showing. More so it's actually on Thursday. More so on Thursday, again, with that severe risk to point out for you. So that's going to be on Thursday with that risk for severe storms. And for areas along and north of I-40, looks to have that chance of seeing the possibility of severe weather. So here's that threat breakdown. It's a low-end risk for our area, so we're looking at a level 1, but primary threats here are going to be the wind concern as well as the heavy rain concern. But even then, it doesn't look like we'll have much energy to work with. In fact, when I looked at the data for Thursday, it was barely showing anything in our area. Now, we got some spotty showers in the morning on Thursday, and then here's by Thursday afternoon, it looks like it's going to be mostly dry at the moment, but can roll out a few of those isolated to scattered showers and storms. Again, looks to be later Thursday into that Friday time window to look for some of those storms moving into the area. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Right now, we do have a first alert weather day that is out for Thursday for parts of the area that could see, again, some of those stronger storms. But nonetheless, it is going to be pretty mild. We're also going to be talking about challenging record high temperatures once again heading into this week, as we're looking at temperatures in the 70s. We're into the 70s today and upper 70s on Thursday. Then there's the cold front. It'll knock us down into the 60s by Friday, and then we're going to stay, or at least not stay, but actually get even lower heading later into the weekend. 49 on Sunday, 45 by next week. So it's going to be quite the contrast as far as going from spring-like warmth to yet another cool down That's going to be on the way later this week and into next week. All right. So I'm First Alert Meteorologist Darius Mack here, talking again a little bit about lightning safety and why it's really important, again, to remember that rule: when thunder roars, go indoors. All right. So that wraps up today's edition of First Alert Weather Plus. Again, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you guys again tomorrow. And then also try to enjoy this weather while you can, because it is really nice. Although it's cloudy, it's going to be really nice out there. So make it a great day.